So today we're on the V70 doing a transmission drain and fill and a transmission flush using the gearbox's own pumping power to change the oil. And this is for gearboxes which have the Aisin Warner, or for vehicles, sorry, that have the Aisin Warner 5550 SN gearbox. This is the Geartronic branded box for the Volvo range. It is applicable to other makes and models, I believe. So first things first is you want to make sure the day before you do this gearbox oil change is that the gearbox oil level is pretty well within its limits before you start. There is inside this engine bay transmission oil dipstick, which you can see looking through there past the air ducting. That yellow dipstick is slightly pulled ajar from the tube already. So the day before you do this oil change, get the vehicle up to temperature by driving it for 20 minutes or more, and slide through the gear selector, stopping at each designation on a flat level surface, and then return it to park. You then use the dipstick to check it on the hot level. This is the only really accurate way of doing it, is checking it on the hot level. See, the lower marker there is labelled cold between the two notches, and then the upper set between the upper two notches is the hot zone. Always check the gearbox oil level when it's hot, preferably. And then the next day, when the gearbox oil is cold, you can then do this drain and fill, or the flush method that I'm about to show you. Next up is the gearbox oil I'm using. I'm using Car Lube ATFU. This is not product placement, it's just what I've decided to use. 4.5 litre cans, and the designation of the fluid that we're after is this here, JWS 3309. The oil specification must meet that standard for the Geartronic gearboxes, at least for the ones labelled between 2001 to 2007. Double check with your manual before you go ahead and do this. I've also got some old milk bottles here with ½ litre graduations marked on them, so this will help me to determine how much has come out versus how much is going to go back in. And the next step is raise the vehicle up along its left hand side. We're using a trolley jack and an axle stand for safety. And I'll just take you back under the car. Right, so now under the vehicle, and looking at the gearbox here on the left hand side of the car, as if you were sitting on the passenger seat, is the gearbox. Before you get to this point, you may need to take off an undertray, 4 to 6 bolts holding that on. I think they're a 12 or 13mm head. Drop the cover down, and then it exposes the underside of the engine and the gearbox. We've got a 24mm drain plug here, so we just need to crack that loose. Ideally you need a new drain plug washer, and I'm going to try and catch some of this in my container first, so that I know exactly how much is coming out. If you've got a drain pan which you can then later measure, then all the better. So like I say, you can use a drain pan and then measure it later. You can just let this drain of its own accord for 10 or 15 minutes. I've chosen to catch it and measure it as I go, just because I don't have enough oil here to do a complete oil change. But under normal circumstances, just allow this to fully drain. You'll get anything from 2 litres up to about 4 litres out of a single drain. Tighten the sump plug with a new washer preferably, and then you can move up to the top. So in this instance I've only drained 1 litre out of the car, and I've got 1 litre of fresh oil to go back in. Obviously different size bottles, which is why it looks like a slightly different amount, but they are marked off as 1 litre. To refill the car, we do that through the dipstick tube only, and for that I've got some 10mm external diameter plastic hose. I've cut away an edge of the hose there just to allow it to slip into the dipstick tube a bit easier, and the other end slides inside the tip of the funnel, and then I can secure that with some tape to ensure it doesn't leak. So that fits into the end of the hose like that. Tape it up, stick the other end down the dipstick tube, and then just refill what you've drained. When you come to refill it, or even if you just want to get to this dipstick tube a bit easier, you can take off some of this air piping and lift the air box out. It's just held in with some clips which pull to release, and then you pop these out of the clips at the front and it comes clear. Gives you a bit more operating area to work with, and then you just got to shine your light down through here and line up your dipstick tube with the plastic pipe to refill. Here's the clean fresh oil going in versus the dirty oil that came out. It takes some time for that to drain down because it's quite a small tube. It's a good excuse to get the kettle on or get the beers out. I've just got some tape, some silicone tape wrapped around the tube, between the tube and the funnel, to stop any leaks. And it's quite important that the fluid, the transmission oil going in and the transmission oil coming out is a similar temperature, because if you drain out hot oil and then put back in cold oil, it will mess with your levels. You will end up overfilling it or underfilling it. So try and do this with the gearbox cold, and then saves you having to worry about the temperature differences. Now once you put all your plastics back together, go for a drive, 20 minutes, get it up to temp and recheck your oil level. Top it up as necessary, and then that's it, your drain and fill is done. So I've moved some of the plastics out of the way here to get better access, and just a closing note, this dipstick, in order to release it, it needs the little spring-loaded finger there to be released from the shoulder of the dipstick handle before you can pull it out. And sometimes you can't see that with all the hose work in the way. So just so you know it's there, it's facing the front of the car. And to release it, you just need to operate the finger back at the same time as lifting it clear. And once it's up past that clip, it slides out nicely. When you come to measure the oil, you do have to push it all the way home until the clip is over the shoulder of the handle, and then release again to check the level. Not always obvious when you're looking at it from above. You also need a long sleeve shirt or sweatshirt to avoid getting burned from these coolant hoses, which will be hot when the engine's up to temperature, so be aware of that also. Now if you're going to go ahead and do the flush method after the drain and fill, you'll need to come to this transmission oil cooler upper hose, the return hose. There's a green clip that retains this into the cooler. That green clip is identical to one of these. You can get this from your Volvo dealer, and basically you need to squeeze in the two side release tangs on the outer edge. This one's missing one of its tangs, but will still work. I'm going to lose a little bit of oil here. And there you have it, it's out. 2 O-rings, 1 clip. Source that from your dealer. So here's the opening for the transmission cooler. Now the hose that goes in there is more like 12mm or 13mm, so I've had to wrap some silicone tape around the tip of the hose to slide it in there so it's a reasonably good fit. I also wrap some more of that tape around the outside to prevent any leaks, and put a bit more tissue underneath. And then we now have the extraction tube for the flush method. So with the tube coming out of the transmission cooler, we can take that down to the bottle of oil, or the empty bottle, whichever you're using, to drain out the rest. And you can stop every 2 litres or every 1.5 litres, switch the car off, then add some fresh. Keep going until the oil that's coming out of this tube is similar colour to the oil going in. Now in this example I'm not doing a complete flush, so I've stopped after I've added another 1.5 litres to the bottle there. So now I know exactly how much has got to go back in versus what's come out. So once you've got the oil coming out the same colour as going in or similar, put some new O-rings and a new green clip on that transmission cooler line and just push it back into place until it clicks.